All right, good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving and you're able to connect with those you care about, and those that care about you are able to connect with you. As we all know, more recent wellness and happiness research shows that really to pursue happiness and wellness, taking time to pursue gratitude and compassion for others seems to be the key. And I don't know any other holiday that really embodies that more than Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving. My name is Jason London. I am faculty with the Institute for Clinical Excellence and teach rehabilitation of the injured cyclist as well as rehabilitation of the injured runner. And what we're going to talk about today briefly is the pediatric distance runner. So yesterday, as probably many of you did as well, ran in a huffing for stuffing or a turkey trot 5K with my family. I have two daughters, 8 and 10, who also did the 5K, and they were not alone. There were tons of other kids running 5K and then some kids running the 10K as well. And as a PT who treats a lot of runners, I see a lot of pediatric athletes, unfortunately, that are injured, and it seems to be increasing with each given year. So I think it's an important topic to talk about and discuss today, and hopefully you'll come away with being a little bit more thoughtful about your approach to pediatric athlete in terms of your patients, and then maybe perhaps with your kids as well. So I think the first thing is to realize is and remind ourselves is that kids or children really aren't miniature adults. Their physiology is different, and therefore we need to really pause and see how the stresses that are being put on their body are affecting them. You know, in other youth sports, there are very good guidelines in terms of volume and pitch. You know, with baseball in particular, there's a lot of really good guidelines based on pretty narrow age groups on pitch counts and what types of pitches these kids should be throwing to try to prevent injuries in youth baseball. But in distance running, there really isn't that stringency with the guidelines. And with knowing that, again, kids are not miniature adults, their physiology is different, is their thermoregulatory capability is different than ours. So they're unable to to handle changes in temperature and regulate their internal body temperature as well and as efficiently as adults. So just a good reminder to us as parents and coaches to really watch out for signs of kids overheating and things of that nature. But really what I want to talk about today more is with, running volume in children. So in addition to having altered thermoregulatory capability, we know that kids' bones are different than our bones, okay? They're skeletally immature, and their growth plates are still open, and they have growing bones. So, with running injuries, we can take normal bone and put abnormal stresses on it and get injuries. But we can also take abnormal bone or bone that's different than adult bone and put normal stresses on it and still develop injuries. So running volume is really important thing to watch out for with kids, because stress fractures definitely do happen with kids. I think they actually happen with a little bit increased frequency or incidence in kids than adults, even though stress fractures are occurring at a high rate in runners. And with kids, it's particularly important because their growth plates are still open and they can get physeal injuries, so injuries to the growth plate, and that can definitely result in long-term morbidity to the kid and potentially really be life-altering in terms of their ability to continue to participate in sports at a high level. So really needing to educate our parents and our patients, and a lot of times it's their parents too, about running volume with kids. So rest days, as we know with distance runners, are really important, and with kids needing for sure at least 2 rest days a week where they're relative rest and they're not training for distance running, as well as throughout the year, it's really important that they take a few weeks or months off from training for distance running. So we're right at the tail end of cross-country season right now. For some communities, that means that indoor track is going to ramp up here in a month or two. And it's important that those cross-country runners are taking some time off, particularly if they're transitioning to indoor track. And then you go right from indoor track to track and then into summer training. So I don't think it's new information to anyone, hopefully not, about early specialization in sport and kids playing the same sport year round, and how that seems to be really pushing injury rates up in youth sports, as well as it seems to be really pushing burnout at an earlier age in sports with our kids. And so early specialization in sport certainly happens with distance running as well, and it's something to be really aware of and really talking to the athlete and their parents and the coach about that. So really from a competitive advantage, we know from more recent literature that early specialization in sport for the majority of athletes is not going to give them a competitive advantage, and actually they'll get more of a competitive advantage from diversifying in their sports throughout the year. This is really important from a developmental standpoint, so that they're developing skills within other sports so they can transfer to their particular sport of interest that they may specialize in later, as well as just preventing burnout and, from a psychological standpoint, keeping sports enjoyable for kids. So really trying to, for the majority of people, specializing in their sport prior to junior high or really even high school really isn't going to give them much benefit and probably increase their likelihood of injury and burnout. So it's important to educate parents regarding this. And as I mentioned, very important for distance runners as well. And then lastly, just again with children, keeping overall volume down as well. So the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 30 to 40 miles per week in children. And I think that's a good starting point in trying to individualize that, and really making sure with particularly our younger kids that with the training that they're doing outside of the season in particular, that it's self-motivated and self-driven, and that with respect to running volume, that they're aware of not increasing their volume or intensity much week to week, but really stressing the importance of having those rest days again. So with volume with kids, I kind of tend to talk more about days per week than than miles per week, because it seems to be a little bit more tangible. So really stressing, running no more than 5 days per week, and then educating them on the importance for performance too, is that when they're going out for their runs, they're not hammering it every single run regardless of the distance, that they need to build up some of their base with doing lower tempo runs and just longer duration kind of easy runs, and mixing that in with some tempo runs later on. So that's really what I think in a nutshell, a brief discussion on running with the pediatric athlete is, again, to recap, they're not miniature adults. They have different physiology, so we need to really watch out for them, and having those important discussions with the athlete as well as the parents on early specialization in sport, making sure that with our kids that The majority of things that they're doing are driven by them and not necessarily by their parents or their coaches to prevent burnout and prevent injury. And also, having discussions with parents too about overscheduling kids too. So they may be doing multiple sports throughout the year, but with younger kids, they may be just doing too much and not getting that rest and recovery. And I think it's really important for kids in general to have unstructured playtime with other kids. And that may be playing soccer or going for a run with other kids, but it's not directed by adults at all. So that really kind of frees things up for them, takes some of the stress off of it, and allows them to have fun with sport. So thank you for your time, and everyone have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll catch you at a course soon.